Hi, I'm Stefan, the BMW DIY guy, and I'm back here at BMW Seattle today because I'm dying to show you the brand new 2022 iX xDrive 50. All right, so let's walk through this a little bit, and I'm going to give you a walk around about the exterior and the interior and really talk about some of the design elements. Now, everything in this car, we could sit and spend an hour just on the changes of the iDrive alone with this brand new version of iDrive 8. It is a radical redesign. It is an entirely different system from what it was before. You know, better design, higher performance, you name it. So I'm really going to give you the highlights as we walk around. But the other thing that's really fun about this is we're going to get a chance to take it out for a drive today as well. You know, we've had the auto shows and the previews and everything else. We actually get a chance to get hands-on and take it out and see what it's like in an all-electric vehicle that you could have up on the Autobahn in Germany and actually perform pretty darn well. Its performance statistics are really impressive as we look at this all-electric vehicle, and as BMW has really pulled out all of the design stops on this one. They really decided to push the boundary in not only how it's made, how it's designed, what it looks like, interior, exterior, absolutely everything. And I'm going to do my best to walk you through some of those highlights today, including the drive, and we'll get to hear what this sounds like, and they may sound a little funny. But Hans Zimmer, yeah, the guy who makes movies, the award-winning producer, designer, composer of a ton of movies, helped co-design how this car sounds. So, I want to walk you through all that. I'm really excited to do it. So let's go ahead and get started on the exterior. All right, guys, so there's so many options that you can add to this car. So as we look at suspension, brakes, wheels, and tires, the whole 9 yards, BMW has really done a great job in giving you a lot of different options. Now, one of the things you can have is 2-axle air suspension. So what that means is that each individual tire height can be individually adjusted. Now, it can automatically adjust that if you're going over a certain speed limit, the car will lower down. You can also raise it up quite a bit by almost a full inch to give you some extra ground clearance. But also there's sport mode that will lower the body as well, which will reduce drag just a little bit. But this also gives you the ability, as you're dealing with maybe an uneven load, if you have a big load of stuff in the back, the car will auto level itself. Now, with that as well, and this particular car doesn't have it, but you can also get active steering, which adds that rear wheel steering and changes really subtly how the car is going to move, especially at slower speeds. When you look at some of the automatic parking function that you can get, is it's putting itself into parallel parking by using its sensors and cameras. It's going to do an even better job there. So there's quite a bit going on, including really custom designed tires. You can get optional extra quiet tires that can be added. And BMW also spent quite a bit of time on the aerodynamics of the wheels to reduce weight and to improve the aerodynamics, because again, especially with an EV, everything is about range, everything is about distance. So everything that you can do to improve that, they're going to do it. All right, so with all that said, let's jump into the inside, take a look at some of the other options there. All right, so one of the things, I've popped the doors open because in a lot of the carbon fiber structure that you saw originally in the 7 series quite some time ago, where there was extensive carbon fiber throughout the body to reduce weight and increase strength and the safety of the car. Now, this is CFRP, or carbon fiber reinforced plastic. And in this case, you can actually see it exposed. So it creates essentially what BMW is calling is a carbon cage throughout the entire car. And this reduces weight, makes the car more efficient, but also increases its strength. So you get that combination of both weight reduction and strength throughout the car. Now, one of the things they've done with the iX, unlike any other model before, is you can actually see it exposed. You can see it when the doors are open, and you can see it when the tailgate is up. And in many ways, this is a cool way to be able to see some of this deeper functionality, some of the improvements that they've made to the car, but you normally can't see because it's all into the body panels or it's really deep in the car. But it's a really cool way of looking at all the things that BMW has done. Okay. All right, so as we approach the car, BMW has something they're now calling great entrance moments, where once it's configured for you, it can orchestrate the lighting and the exterior and interior lights. It can activate the light carpet, door handles, even automatically unlock itself, everything as you walk towards it. So really a lot of technology packed in, but one of the things I wanted to look at before we got in is actually the changes to the door itself. If you notice, there's no door pull. There's actually a button to open the door now. Seat controls are actually mounted on the door. And one of the other things I wanted to point out, especially here in the back seat, as we look at this, There's no transmission tunnel. So normally I start in the front seat, but today we're going to start in the back. So as we get in, this really is designed for 3 all the way across. And one of the biggest things that makes the difference is a lack of a transmission tunnel. Since the electric motors are both front and rear, you don't have a standard transmission tunnel that takes that big hump right here in the middle that takes up all of that foot space. So you can actually put 3 adults here in the back seat. With that, you can see all the options that you have for climate control and even including power here in the back seats for your passengers, which is a really nice convenience. So as we look through this in the electrochromatic glass, which I'll show off here in just a moment, even in the back seat, you have a tremendous amount of space so you can actually haul passengers efficiently and 3 across. All right, so let's go ahead and jump in the front and take a look at some of the technology. All right, so as we dive into the technology on this car and as we talk about the navigation and some of the other functions and how they tie into the actual performance of this car, one of the most important things of any EV, of course, is going to be power and range, recharge rates, and all the rest. So when you look at it, this actually can be charging from a charging unit up to 200 kilowatts. Now, estimates on this is going to be 300 plus miles, but when you actually look at its charging ability, if you have a fast charging station, you can actually in 10 minutes charge it up to 90 miles if you have a 200 kilowatt charger. Now, the same thing using a fast charger, it would take less than 40 minutes to actually charge it up from 10 to 80%. So you look at being able to bring effective range back quickly if you're taking this for longer distances and not just shorter around town or commuting. In addition, BMW has an EVgo partnership that when you buy the car, you're actually going to get a $100 credit at EVgo chargers that you can use at network stations all the way across all 50 US states. So a lot of options there when you're actually looking at an EV vehicle. Now, one thing I want to call out again really quickly is that lack of that transmission hump, so you have quite a bit of space here up in front. But the most obvious immediate design changes are going to be this entire screen design that is, it looks like it's free floating. All the mounts are back behind, hidden from view, and they've combined, instead of having a central display and a touch display here on the side, it's all now blended into one contiguous setup. Now, this is, and I cannot stress what a radical change this is in not only iDrive 8, but also the functionality. In many ways, BMW says this can be up to 20 times faster than any of their previous systems. You're looking at voice, of course, and touch controls, and a very big redesign to the iDrive and central controls. BMW has taken what they're describing as a really functional, minimalistic sort of approach and reduced the amount of buttons by 50%. You're also looking at a change in the iDrive functionality as well. You're very familiar, buttons that you've had. If you've had multiple BMWs previously, they've actually rearranged them quite a bit to fit with this design that they have in the car. So as you look at this, there's quite a bit of difference, but in many ways, it's really quite a step up when you look at it. The voice controls are really, really good. I would love to be able to demo some of the sound and some of the other functionality that you have in this, but as always, I can't play music because YouTube will give me a hard time. Now, this has the Harman Kardon system in it. You can actually get an optional speaker upgrade that will take you and put speakers through the headliner, through the headrests, will all the way be back in the back seats as well, and really will turn this into a theater experience if you want that level of upgrade in your car. Now, of course, all the latest navigation and all the options that you could possibly have there in the iDrive 8, but this is where all of this functionality starts to tie together when you're looking at your navigation system. Now, with an EV, if you put in your destination and you tie it into your navigation, your EV system will start to give you suggestions along the way and will do its best to actually predict how you're going to drive. It's going to make suggestions, it's going to show you where charging stations are, it's going to be showing you a significant amount of information to make this as absolutely as convenient as possible. Here with the latest map system, which is going to be updated actually several times a week, and you're going to get those as over-the-air updates. So let's go and look at the central display next. Let me get it fired up a little bit more, and we'll take a look at how that functionality all ties together. All right, so if you forgive any reflection that I might get off the screens right at the moment, that's just based off of my camera. But again, what a tremendous design difference in what we've seen in the iDrive 7s prior to this, even in some of the latest versions. So now with this new iDrive 8 and the same screen setup that you're actually going to see in the i4 as well, and a number of the other LCI models that are coming forward that are going to have the iDrive 8 are going to have this one contiguous screen throughout. Now, as you can see, it's currently giving me an estimate of what it thinks it's going to be for range. And we'll get that Hans Zimmer startup sound as we go through it all. Now, there's a little bit of flickering I can see on my camera right now. This is entirely my camera, so as you can see right here in the middle a little bit, please disregard that. That is entirely just frame rate off my camera picking up something that the eye doesn't see. But this central display is going to be radically customized depending on what you do as you move it through all of your different modes. Now, one of the coolest things about this is you look at basically a learning mode. It will be teaching you how to drive most efficiently and extend your range as much as possible if you have that functionality turned on, which also, of course, ties into your adaptive braking and how much control that you give there and how you want to drive this car forward. Now, with an EV like this and the level of technology, I'm not going to be able to cover all of the options. And if you definitely check some of the information that I'm sharing along with this video, you can see some of the range of options that you possibly have, because this is something where you're really going to customize exactly what you're doing depending on range, depending on performance, depending on what you want to do. And I even noticed in the setup, there's even an option that you can tell the car that if it has chains on it. Now, with that one function, I definitely wanted to call out that's really cool with the advanced TPS system, or your tire pressure monitoring system. One additional really cool function here is you can actually tell the car what type of tires that you have on. It can be scanned by a barcode, or the car can be told. The car is then going to monitor your tires based off drive. It's going to know what kind of tires that you have on, and it can actually monitor based off of wear and tear and begin to tell you when you may need new tires. What a cool function. So there are so many options here as you look at all of your different apps that you can possibly have installed. I was talking about my modes a few moments ago, where you can personalize it significantly. You can put it into a default sport mode where you're going to get the highest performance you're going to get out of the car, and then efficient mode as well. And all of these things are going to change your central display, how the car behaves, and all of that setup. So for example, as we go from efficient to sport, you can see the central display changed as well with this design that you've seen in similar iDrive 7 with your kind of triangular or angular looking displays on each side. Though of course, with this car, you don't have a tachometer because you have an electric car. But a cool functionality is it's showing your power and your speed and all of those different options as you go through. So what a cool set of functionality with all of this latest features. Now you can see as BMW has moved forward with this iDrive 8, they've gone through the different tile setups. If you've gone from iDrive 6 to 7 to basically what is 7.5 or 7.5, and all of the options that you can have to customize this car for exactly for yourself. Now, one of the things I want to talk about is, of course, how much customization that you have here in this car is not set up for me or the owner yet, but there are so many things that you can do to customize this car to make it exactly what you want it to be and how it's going to work. In addition, if you put your route in, and as I was talking earlier about the route preview, it will lay out information. And if you are going for a longer distance than you are the range of the car, it will give you suggestions of where charging stations can be for your car. And even if you're going to be there for a longer period of time, will even make suggestions for activities and things to do while your car charges. So this really is a different approach. And then somebody, I've got my M2 and I really love my high performance M cars. And this is an entirely different driving experience. This is an entirely different kind of car. And, as many of us look at our cars as almost a way of life or a lifestyle, I mean, this is a different lifestyle of car, right? Which is really just amazing. Now, the car keeps trying to get my gesture control as I'm gesturing with my hands, so forgive that. But as you can see, you can set in all of your different tire types as well, which I was just mentioning a second ago. So the amount of customization that you can have is really tremendous. All right, so one thing I didn't want to miss as we look at all this, and is the electrochromatic glass on the sunroof. So this is one contiguous piece of glass through the whole car. So no sections, no segments, and also no slide sun visor. So when you look at this, and as we'll look briefly, as you can see the sun there, this is in the closed mode, as it were, or dimmed sunroof. And you can actually even affect that through voice controls. Open the sunroof.
Sure, I will set the transparency to high.
That is so cool. So as we look at it, and we use the sun as the reference there, just very briefly, I know that's bright on the camera, but you can see the difference between the two, and you can use all the voice controls for even a functionality like that. Close the sunroof.
I will set the transparency to low.
And it auto darkens. That is so cool. What a neat functionality. And I really do love the panoramic roofs. I love the sunroof in my car. It's always an option I'd love to have. And it's such a cool option to have in this case, especially with technology like this auto dimming glass. So it's just one more thing where BMW has really brought all the technology they have to bear, both in design and interior, even down to some of the smallest things like how your sunroof operates in what is a standard function and been around for so many years. They've added something innovative and really neat to it. So I do love the interior, and this is really a tremendous amount of space that would work very, very well, not only for an individual, but for a group, and especially without that transmission hump there as well. You actually have so much more footroom. Now, in this is very similar in footprint to an X5. It's similar in height to an X6, and even has some of the functionalities that you'd see or some of the familiar features you'd see in an X7. But this really is a brand new standalone SAV from BMW. So all in all, really cool. But hey, let's take this out for a drive. All right, y'all, so let's go ahead and get this started. So, and again, with an EV, you've got startup sound rather than a motor. So we'll just put it down into drive and just pull this out. And you know, this is a really cool experience for me because I'll be honest, this is the first time really in an EV like this. I never got a chance to drive an i3. So with this new iX and the coming i4, this really is a brand new experience. And I've driven some EVs before, but I haven't driven a full BMW EV like this. So really going for the full experience right now. So let's go ahead and ease out. Let's see what it's like, and I'll take you on one of my favorite loops that I always do here when I do test drives. All right, so first impressions here, as we sit and wait for the train. Quick, just like the power is instantaneous. You just step on the pedal and it immediately gets up and goes, which you would expect from an EV. And that in itself is not unusual, but the amount of horsepower that this car has is really impressive when it has its electric motors both front and rear, which even changes how it's like stability to control and traction control work, because all of those control systems have to be moved closer to the wheels themselves, because you don't want the delay of have it all in one central module, like, you know, up underneath the hood and have it wait to get out to the outside. So all of this functionality is much, much faster. Now, again, there's a million ways you can modify the way the regenerative brakes work and have it start. And I'm really just I'm starting in efficient mode here just to get a sense of what it's like. But this is a car that's even going to perform really, really well on the Autobahn and other places like that. But the other thing is, my first impression, quiet. And I don't mean motor quiet, I mean all in all quiet. Again, I wouldn't expect to hear a motor or hear the engine of course at all, but first impressions are this is whisper quiet, and I can't wait to get it up on the freeway and see what it's like up there as well. One last thing, and we'll go back to the drive, is the heads-up display is really, really good. It's really hard to catch on camera, so I usually don't, but it's broad and wide across the whole windshield, and it looks really good. So let's get back to the drive. Questions as we're rolling up here onto I-90. Car is responsive and quick, super quiet. I can barely hear the tires, and it was responsive as I went through the curves, which was really nice. I mean, especially in a car like this right off, where I've not driven it before and everything is different. Now the other thing is, and an adjustment to to driving style. Again, you can adjust how regenerative or recuperative the brakes are, but that where you lift your pedal, lift the accelerator pedal at low speed, and it starts to just brake for you. It's not just coasting under resistance, but starts to brake, which is a really interesting experience. All right, so let's take it out and give you a little bit of the views of Seattle. How these expansion joints here in the bridge feel. As we go over here, this is the floating bridge here in Seattle on I-90. If you're not familiar with the area, it actually does float as we go across Lake Washington. And you go across all of these expansion joints, and it really does ride quite comfortably across them all. I mean, you're not going to be looking at, M5 performance where it's really, really tight, but this really is comfortable and handles all of these expansion joints and bumps really well. And again, there's so many fine touches about this car. As we went through the tunnel back there, and I got a better look at the central display, under a darker conditions. It really is the right amount of ambient light, and I'm looking forward to seeing this display in additional models as BMW moves forward. And also the LED or the lighting tracks along the door window ledges is really cool as well. Couldn't show it on camera, of course, but it's really cool to see as we went through the dark of the tunnel. So let's go ahead and try it out a little bit more, and then we'll take it on one of my favorite loops to come back, and we'll try it in sport mode. I've switched to sport mode, and it's definitely interesting. And again, those differences between how your car is set up and the regenerative brakes, right? So in the efficient mode, I'd lift my foot and I'd get that kind of immediate kind of pullback as it's using that recuperative or regenerative brakes. And in this case, where I put it into sport mode, it'll just free roll. And the difference is really quite dramatic. So I would think that depending on your familiarity with this car, you'd be looking at changing your driving style a little bit, but with its training systems that it has built in to be the most efficient as possible. If you're going for longer drives or you want to get the most efficiency out of it as possible, you're going to be doing that anyway. But so as we take this out here and we look at one of my favorite on-ramps, hopefully we'll get a little bit of an opportunity just to see the performance. Here we go. We turn in. Let's feel the difference with an all-electric car. Oh my goodness. Yeah. And dead silent. Wow, that is an experience. As my seatbelt is cinched down on me. Wow. That response was instantaneous. No ramp up, no curve, no turbo spool. That was instantaneous. That was impressive. And if you couldn't tell in the video, it actually brought my head back a little bit. So, and then I think the craziest thing is it's so quiet. No engine roar, no nothing, just flat, straight performance. That was impressive. And when you look at a car that's over 500 horsepower combined, when you look at the electric motors, and then the M60 is going to be over 600 horsepower in an all-electric car. So that was, honest to goodness, impressive. And what I love is the fine touches. I'm currently in sport mode. There's some highlighting in the heads-up display that's now orange because I'm in sport mode. The door highlights are in orange because I'm in sport mode. And then if I switch back, I go back to my modes, and I switch back to efficient, everything is gonna go blue. So the highlights go blue, the doors go blue. There really is a design consistency through the whole thing that's really quite refreshing as we drive behind a BMW i3, which was fantastic for its time, but this is definitely that next step up in technology. So I tell you, at least from that brief pull onto the freeway, that was really impressive. All right, let's take more of a look at Seattle as we take the car back. Depending on your usage model. It has all of the possible systems that you could have for lane departure, cross traffic warnings. It even has some new functionality about opening your doors. It's using all your sensors while you're parked or at low speeds to look at all of the traffic and moving traffic around you. So if you pull into a spot and you're worried about opening your door, so if you had a pedestrian or a bicyclist, or maybe even worse, you had another car, it's actually going to warn you about opening your door, which, a lot of us pay a lot of attention to, but sometimes, for those of us that have kids, Have your kids in the car, they're not quite as careful. So there's some really cool functionality there that adds in all of these safety systems as far as lane departure and looking at other vehicles around you that you would come to expect from a modern car, but at the same time, this has taken so much of it to that next level. Just like I mentioned earlier about the TPMS system and how it can be used to monitor your tires, actually the health of your tires, which is really quite cool. So I think BMW has really taken this to the next level, and so when you look at a design like this and you're looking at an EV, what a great car with all this technology and options that are packed in, and in many ways it's a preview of all of the new technology that you're going to be seeing in the additional new models as you come forward, and especially if you're interested in more of a sedan style EV like the i4. And then even there, it was actually warning me about distance in the car in front of me. So as the car merged into my lane. So what a cool car. I love this electrochromatic glass roof. And let's take it back to the dealership. All right, so back here to the dealership, and as always, this is going to be a really simple, quick video talking about some of the high-level features and functions, and hopefully to encourage you to deep dive into all of the things that this car can do, and even with the test drive, which is exactly what it's going to be. I want to give you an experience of what it would be like to take this out for a quick test drive, and I will say the acceleration in sport mode was really impressive. I mean that sincerely, but it's always going to be a test drive because I'm going to treat these very respectfully and very carefully as BMW Seattle is kind enough to be able to actually loan me the car for a little bit and give me a chance to give you guys a walk around on it, which I always love to do. So I'm incredibly grateful to BMW Seattle for this opportunity, and please make sure to click the alarm bell and the subscribe. It makes a huge difference to my channel, and I have a ton of content coming this year. I'm just going to blow your mind with it, and there's all kinds of really cool stuff coming that I can't wait to show you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on my next video.